few housekeeping notes before we get started with tonight's presentation. The door that is in the center of the back of the hall is the one to use towards the washrooms, but we would like, if you have drinks in your hand, please leave them at your seat if you're heading up there to use the washroom tonight. Drinks need to stay in Paul O'Regan Hall. Welcome. We're so excited to welcome you to the Atlantic Book Awards Gala this evening. And we would like to acknowledge that we are gathering today in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq. And as we collaborate with partners and celebrate the works of writers from across all 4 Atlantic provinces, we acknowledge that our work takes place on the ancestral lands of the Mi'kmaq, the Wolastoqey, Passamaquoddy, Beothuk, Innu, and Inuit peoples of what is now known as Atlantic Canada. My name is Oriana, and I'm the Executive Director of the Writers' Federation of Nova Scotia, and I also sit on both of the boards for the Nova Scotia and the Atlantic Book Awards.
Hello, my name is Marilyn Smulders, and I'm the Chair of the Atlantic Book Awards. Welcome, thank you so much for coming. We have a lot of people to thank, and I want to do this off the top so it doesn't get buried. The Canada Book Fund of the Department of Canadian Heritage, Access Copyright, Support for Culture, also our new sponsors, Gordon Stewart Wealth Management, KPMG, Cox & Palmer, Mercy Seafoods, and Atlantic Lottery. I'd also like to thank our partners, Atlantic Books Today, Halifax Public Libraries, and the Writers' Federation of Nova Scotia. Yay! A few more thanks to the 5 sets of jurors who worked hard to select this year's shortlists and winners, our official booksellers this evening, Bookmark, Halifax, and our ASL interpreters, Julia Roy and Hunter Trenier, and all of our presenters and readers.
We'd like to invite a special guest up here to help us warm the room this evening. Aaron Prosper is a proud Ilnu artist and healthcare professional from the Eskasoni First Nation. Aaron is a member of 2 professional Indigenous music groups, the Eastern Eagle Singers, a contemporary Mi'kmaq drum group based out of Sebeganegedy First Nation, and the multimedia band Alan Sillaboy and the Thundermakers. In all of his work, Aaron takes the most pride in contributing to the promotion of Mi'kmaq rights and self-determination and the preservation and revitalizing of Mi'kmaq culture, song, dance, language, and traditions. Welcome, Aaron.
Gwe, Nín Delwisi Aaron Prosper, Lewi Wegwistornik, Gadua Jwiginig Jibuktuk. Wel das not dil bijidayo, wel das ja is dan dil jixuduio, gluk bla dadio instead. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. My name's Aaron Prosper. I'm from Wegwistornik, or Eskasoni First Nation, but I now reside for the last 10 years here in HRM, or what we would call Chibuktuk. Thank you to the Book Awards for the honor of being able to open your event tonight. Often when I'm asked to do these things, I try to give a bit of a reflection because my role in the community is as a singer, or a power singer, and to us, singing and that idea of singing as an art form is we view it as a gift, in that songs that you give or that are given to you or gifted to you, even those original songs, we view them as gifts, and they're meant to be shared to celebrate our community members, their achievements, what they do. Everything that I've learned about what it means to be a drummer or an artist is really about celebrating your community and when you're called upon to do that in particular ways. And so I try to give some moments of reflection and why I sing the songs that I do in particular times. And thinking about a writer and what it means to be a writer, I've been fortunate enough that not in these specific book awards, but a few days ago in the Nova Scotia Book Awards, a dear mentor of mine the late Dr. Ronald Stewart, who was actually a nominee for one of the awards. I got to witness firsthand his whole writing process. I lived with Dr. Stewart. I was fortunate enough for 6 years through my entire undergrad. And when I was in my undergrad, he started the process of making his memoir, Treat Them Where They Lie. And he made that memoir with the great Jim Meek. And what I witnessed through that process and him writing that book was the labor of love that it really takes to write a book, to put your whole self in that, to express yourself, to give yourself to the community in the way that you do. It's such a touching thing to be able to witness that. I haven't had the opportunity yet in my young career to write. I hope to be able to do that maybe one day. I'm actually in the middle of writing a thesis, so all you writers, say a prayer for me. But in saying that, thinking about Dr. Stewart's words, I wanted to read a paragraph from his memoir that I think gives a important message. When he talks about it, it's specific to his context as a physician, but the life lessons that I think are within this passage apply to really everything that we do, given the current world and the state of our climate that we're in. And that underlying message to me was, to be kind to one another. The importance of taking a moment and seeing the best in the person across from us. I don't know if folks have heard the Mi'kmaq teaching of two-eyed seeing, or what we call Edwaptamunk. Yes, that teaching implies bridging together Indigenous and Western worldviews, but also I've learned about it. Edwaptamunk actually, goes further than that. It's not just about bridging Indigenous and Western worldviews, but it's, looking at that person across from you, no matter what walk of life they come from, and seeing the best in them and what they can teach you. And I think this passage from Dr. Stewart, I think embodies, what that really means. So prior to this passage, he's talking about the creation of a fairly big, what has now become a big charity event for the Dalhousie Medical School sort of program known as Euphoria. And this started actually in 1969. And in this passage, he weaves in some historical context, a bit of humor, but also the humanity of what it really means to write and put yourself out there in these thoughts. So here's he gives the preamble of creating Euphoria, and then he talks about that year, 1969, and what he learned about it. So he says, of course, 1969 was a remarkable year, not only for the Dalhousie Medical School, but for humankind. On July 20, 1969, millions of people gathered around their televisions to watch two American astronauts do something no one had done before. Wearing bulky spacesuits, Neil Armstrong and Ed Buzz Aldrin became the first human beings to walk on the moon. At that very moment, I was treating an elderly patient in a glass atrium while the light of the moon shone down upon us. A black and white TV was broadcasting the story. When Neil Armstrong uttered those famous words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," my index finger was inserted into the rectum of the poor patient, probing for the tumor that would soon kill him. The digital examination was by the book, but totally unnecessary. I should have known, and some part of me did know, that my patient's disease was terminal. His death 2 days later taught me another lesson in humility. Sometimes it is kinder not to treat patients, but rather to let life and death take their course. To many outsiders, practicing medicine often seems as dramatic and exciting as walking on the moon. At rare moments, it is just that. Most of the time, it is about being human and striving to do the job while being kind in the process. The patient died 2 days later. When I met with the family, I told them their loved one and I had watched the moon landing together. And to me, I think, he embodies an important message of, what we should all strive for, not only in his practice in medicine, but with one another, whether we're practicing medicine, whether it's art, whether it's building community, it's, being kind to one another. And I think we really need more of that, in our communities. And so a big thank you to all of you writers, for giving that kindness and giving yourself to your books and giving that to the community, because to me that's what it is. It's you're giving your heart, your kindness, your soul, and that vulnerability for really all of us to benefit. So I say glutla daradio, great work, and baksepi waladio. Thank you all. And so to honor that, to open our event, I will like to sing the Mi'kmaq honor song in honor of all of you honorees and you nominees, because whether you win an award at the end of the day or not, the fact that you're here and you've put that, that time and that effort into those books, it's important to honor that. So with that, I invite you all, if you could please stand. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you for the honor to being able to open your award ceremony. And at the end of the day, because I won't be around, I got to go back to writing my thesis. William Madano Dantleo, wish you all safe travels to your home. So Wilalio, big congratulations to you all.
Thank you so much, Erin. And now for our host for the evening, Amy Smith. Amy Smith is one of the hosts of CBC News Nova Scotia. She is an award-winning journalist whose work has been recognized by the Atlantic Journalism Awards, the Canadian Screen Awards, the Radio and Television Digital News Association. She grew up in Nova Scotia and is a graduate of the University of King's College School of Journalism. This is her first time hosting the Atlantic Book Awards. A warm welcome for Amy.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, and it's a real honor to be here, and welcome to the 2025 Atlantic Book Awards Gala. We have a special event planned for you this evening, and we're pleased once again to be able to live stream tonight's award show so book lovers everywhere can take part. So we want to extend a special welcome to all of you joining us tonight via live stream. Maybe we can give them a wave and welcome them into the ceremony too. All right, well, for those in the room, we encourage anyone taking photos this evening to please feel free to share them online and tag @Atlantic Book Awards. We have Bookmark Halifax here selling copies of tonight's nominated books if you'd like to browse and shop after the show, and I'm sure you do. Lastly, I think you heard this before, but there are washrooms up the stairs and to the right, and no beverages can leave this area. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's get down to business. Our first award celebrates excellence in books for children. The Anne Connor Brymer Award for Atlantic Canadian Children's Literature was established by the family of Anne Elizabeth Connor Brymer, a dedicated educator and Atlantic officer for the Canadian Children's Book Centre. Here with us this evening to present this award is last year's winner of the Brymer Award, Jack Wong, author of The Words We Share. Jack.
Hello, everybody. It's a great honor to be presenting tonight's nominees and winner of the Anne Connor Brymer Award. And here are the nominees. They are Chad Lucas, You Owe Me One Universe, published by Harry N. Abrams. Rebecca Phillips, The End of Always, Second Story Press. Valerie Sherrard, Standing on Neptune, DCB Young Readers. Hannah D. State, Journey to the Dark Galaxy, Glowing Light Press. And Gloria Ann Wesley, Shovels, Not Rifles, Formac Publishing Company. And now for the jury citations for each book, starting with You Owe Me One Universe by Chad Lucas. In You Owe Me One Universe, Chad Lucas revisits the middle school boys from his award-winning debut, Thanks a Lot Universe. Through skillful prose and heartfelt storytelling, Lucas delves into themes of self-identity, mental health, and the complexities of belonging. Few books explore the emotional depth of boys' friendships with such nuance, making this novel a vital addition to middle grade literature. With a strong emphasis on acceptance and understanding, both of oneself and others, Lucas crafts a compelling narrative that highlights the importance of empathy and connection. His work continues to make a meaningful contribution to stories about growing up, friendships, and emotional resilience. The End of Always by Rebecca Phillips. The End of Always is a well-rounded coming-of-age story that deals with grief, loss, and the challenges that arise when a teenager has to deal with an unstable parent. Phillips creates a riveting sense of doom as Isabel's father falls deeper and deeper into paranoia, finally carrying his family with him into the survivalist prepper culture. Everything in Isabel's life that was safe and familiar falls away with a dizzying and well-crafted sense of calamity. Phillips shows great skill creating convincing characters within extreme situations, with enough ordinary teen preoccupations to keep the story grounded. For example, Isabel's budding romance with Dane provides a sweet counterpoint to the instability in the rest of her life. Her Her inner journey holds the center of the book, portrayed with an astute understanding of the challenges involved when circumstances force teens to prematurely navigate the precarious space between being a teenager and being an adult. This is a compelling, thoughtful story that is perfectly timed to mirror our current, very unsteady world. Standing on Neptune by Valerie Sherrard. Standing on Neptune is a beautifully written, tender story that explores the inner world of Brooke, a teenager who thinks she might be pregnant. The book is engaging, easy to read, and deals honestly with a situation all too familiar to many young women. Sherrard never hits a wrong note. Brooke is fully realized, very believable character who clearly expresses her shifting feelings about trust, family, and friends as she grapples with fear about her future. Sherrard has a gift for poetic expression, along with a deep insight into what it feels to be young, vulnerable, and very much alone. Each poem can be read and understood on its own, yet each poem moves the plot and characters forward with a seamless grace. Brooke's identification with the mysterious planet Neptune is profound and haunting. Like all good poetry, all good books, Standing on Neptune leaves echoes in the reader's heart long after it is finished, an impressive achievement. Journey to the Dark Galaxy by Hannah D. State. In Hannah D. State's science fiction adventure, Journey to the Dark Galaxy, sequel to Journey to the Hopewell Star, teenager Sam Sanderson is drafted into the Great Alliance for Interplanetary Affairs following the discovery of a mysterious deep space signal. Assigned to an underwater military base, she uncovers unsettling truths about the organization and confronts isolation. At the same time, Coder Kwan Yun detects the enigmatic signal triggering unforeseen events. As an existential threat looms, the young women find themselves navigating deception and danger and discover that courage alone may not be enough to save humanity. This ambitious and propulsive tale offers a suspenseful and thought-provoking exploration of humanity's future, making it a standout addition to the sci-fi genre. Finally, Shovels Not Rifles by Gloria Ann Wesley. Gloria Ann Wesley's Shovels Not Rifles is a historical novel that follows the journey of a young black man, Will Coleman, as he navigates the racial injustices of World War I era Nova Scotia. Eager to fight but denied the chance due to systemic discrimination, Will instead joins Canada's all-black military unit, the No. 2 Construction Battalion. Through vivid storytelling and rich historical detail, Wesley sheds light on the overlooked contributions of Black Canadians during the war. The novel is a powerful exploration of perseverance, racism, and the fight for dignity in the face of adversity, making it a significant contribution to Canadian historical fiction for young readers.
That was a lot of reading. Well done. And to announce this year's winner, we have Gavin Brymer, son of Ann Connor Brymer.
Well, thank you very much. This is one of my favorite things to do in the course of the year, not only because it's something that honors my mother's memory, but it also is such a testament to the quality of the writing in the region, specifically for children. We've been presenting this award for over 30 years now, which is remarkable in itself. And I have to say, my mother would be so thrilled to see sort of the evolution of the Atlantic Canadian children's literature landscape over that time. When we envisioned this award over 30 years ago, things were very different, and the amount of quality writing coming out of the region today is much different than it was all those years ago. So it's really my honor and privilege to be able to continue to help support this award in my mom's memory and to recognize the quality of the writing that's taking place in the region. So without further ado, I will announce this year's winner. So the Ann Connor Brymer Award for Atlantic Canadian Children's Literature goes to Valerie Sherrard, Standing on Neptune.
You sure? I'm honestly just so surprised. I mean, I saw the quality of the other books that are on the list this year, and I had like no expectation whatsoever. I'm so grateful. The Brymer is one of the most respected awards in young people's literature in Canada at this time, and very wonderfully sustained by the family. I appreciate all that they have done to make the Atlantic province's children's writers better known. Thank you to the jury, and just honestly, I had nothing prepared because thank you so much. Congratulations, Valerie, and to all the other nominees. We now have Colleen to read from Standing on Neptune. Colleen Arcturus McIsaac is an award-winning transdisciplinary artist based in Mi'kmaq. The artistic producer of the Villains Theatre. They create plays, comics, performances, animations, and illustrations, among other things. They love reading out loud to their 18-month-old, and they love reading out loud to you.
This is about what happened. Except I've been thinking about the word happened, the way it speaks of events and moments that have been left in the past as though, having taken place, they are trapped in time gone by, which is a peculiar notion when you think about it, because the truth is, everything that was becomes part of what is. So, this is my story, but it is not the story of me, only of a moment and moments that took place in my life and crept into who I am. Another episode of, once again, I am lying on my bed, except this time there are no tears or long despairing shudders. This time there is a frozen knot of empty filling me. Eventually, I managed to force my thoughts outward and upward to the skies. Probing Neptune. This planet, bestowed on me by means of a scrap of paper, has turned out to be a gift of sorts, drawing me away from Earth and self. There is a feeling of almost magic, imagining this vast and frozen ball of brilliant blue spinning alone, 3 billion miles from the sun, set apart by time and space. How little we must truly know, in spite of our mathematicians and interstellar missions, such as the astounding journey made by space probe Voyager 2. I envision it rushing through outer space for 12 patient years in order to pass nearby, a tourist on a record-breaking photo shoot. We have only seen its surface, felt awe and wonder as it performs its dual act, that endless commotion of motion, rotating even as it revolves, traveling steadily around the sun, an odyssey achieved in a mere 165 years. How very much more there must be beneath the blue, beyond the dark and great divide of this galaxy, which is itself but a speck, a mere spot of dust in infinity. Our shared truth, I suspect, is that it too has secrets hidden beneath what can be seen. Standing on Neptune, there is something incredibly cold and lonely about moving through the days carrying thoughts and feelings that cannot be shared, cannot be spoken of. It is like being frozen in time, suspended far from my own world. It feels as though my body has taken up residence in another part of the universe, the coldest, farthest place known to mankind, in a void so vast that I might as well be standing on Neptune.
Thank you for that, Colleen. We appreciate it. The J.M. Abraham Atlantic Poetry Award is named in memory of Father Joseph Murray Abraham, a missionary and humanitarian and a prolific writer. It is administered by the Writers' Federation of Nova Scotia. Here is Anna Kwan and Kathleen Martin to present the nominees. Anna is the municipality's 9th and current Poet Laureate. Kathleen Martin is a member of the Writers' Federation of Nova Scotia and a family member of Father Abe.
I'm just going to take a quick moment to talk briefly to you about Father Abraham, who is my great cousin, technically and both truthfully. They've mentioned him as a missionary, but he's not the kind of missionary that you might think when you think of a Jesuit priest. He did live deep in the Himalayan mountains for 60 years working there, but his absolute obsession was the eradication of poverty and social injustice in that area of the world and in the world in general. It was the main thing, the only thing he really worked at doing, and he tried to do it in every possible way he could think of. He was an incredibly brilliant person, deeply kind, hilariously funny, very, very quick with his humor and also just with realizing things. And what he would talk about was how he felt like trying to eradicate poverty was like emptying the ocean with a leaking thimble. And he spent a lot of time working with people across Canada to support that work. Long before it made sense to all of us because there was no internet, of course, at that time. He wrote letters every single month to as many people as who would accept them to ask them to please help him, help other people who were just like them, but born under different circumstances. And one of the things that he did, he tried everything he could think of, but one of the things that he thought was really important in this huge struggle he had was poetry. And he would send people, at once kind of email lists became a thing. Every week he would send them a poem because he really felt like one of the ways that we could change the world, one of the ways we could deeply understand each other and try and help eliminate the injustices of the world was through poetry. And so I was so grateful that we have this award in his honor, not just because I think he was just an outstanding human being, but because he was someone who understood to the marrow of his bone how important our words are, how when facts stop and when pictures don't do the thing, that maybe a poem will hop into someone's soul and into their heart and change how they think about other people and their role in the lives of people they don't know. So I'm really grateful to be here.
And the nominees for the J.M. Abraham Atlantic Poetry Award are Claire Goulet, Graphis Scripta, Writing Lichen, Gasparo Press, Anik McCaskill, Votive, Gasparo Press, Johanna Skibsrud, Medium, Bookhug Press, Bren Simmers, The Work, Gasparo Press, Douglas Walburn Goff, Island, Goose Lane Editions.
And I'm going to read from the jury citation for Claire Goulet's Graphis Scripta. Each poem in Graphis Scripta, Writing Lichen, invites contemplation or laughter or both, deftly yoking biology to stories of family, history, and science. Goulet leads readers to better understand metaphor through her poetic exploration of lichen, symbiotic organisms that defy categorization, having traits of fungi, bacteria, and even minerals. This complexity is necessary to convey the nuanced linguistic relationships that preoccupy Goulet, who in Parmelia Salcata Hammered Shield calls language our human shield, where death shelters behind the living. The book is serious even when it isn't. From the Bugs Bunny splat and jazz hands of the first poem, a puckish line of humor leavens the Zwicky-esque philosophizing. Goulet also makes room for serendipity. Rather than imposing some sort of narrative order, she presents the first section's poems alphabetically. As in the book's title, most of the poems in that first section are named with the Latin term for a specific lichen linked with a descriptive word or phrase. Basidia Schwanitzi, surprise, Xylographia Parallela, Blackwood script. The second section then digs more deeply into the implications, personal, ecological, historical, of the issues raised in the first.
Votive, Anik McCaskill. With an unflinching yet compassionate gaze toward her younger self, Votive details the development of Anik McCaskill's gay sexuality within the repressive Catholicism of small-town Acadie. What lifts McCaskill's book above the crowd of coming-of-age stories is her mastery of form and voice, including the tongue-in-cheek homage to Emily Dickinson in I Felt a First Communion in My Brain. Votive includes several successful glosas and even more sonnets like the steamy My Body is a Candle I'd Like to Snuff Out at Night, which ends by describing how she wanted a match to come within my orbit where, like a shooting star, it could fall, scorch the earth, char my soles, and lick my limbs. As the poet matures, she enters Christian mythologies under the more ancient, though new to her, work of Sappho, several translated fragments of which she includes here. The moon has retreated, and my starry girls with her. The middle of the night and the hours run on, while I lie down alone. Refreshingly, McCaskill recognizes that though her faith has outgrown her childhood's parochialism, the appreciation for ritual and ceremony it engendered persists.
Medium by Joanna Skibsted. The poems in Medium serve as lyrical portraits, introducing readers to women whose formidable resolve is worthy of note. We meet a mathematician, rocket scientist who worked as a human computer for NASA, a tobacco farmer whose cells were unethically used for medical study, the wife of a beloved author who assisted her husband and suffered abuse at his hands, and a woman born into a famous family of clowns. Through clean, sharp, and minimalistic lines, Skibsted gives voice to the women featured, elevating them from the backgrounds and offering dimension and context to their names and lives. Skibsted's presentation of the women's personal and political challenges and their quiet, clever, and bold personalities creates a bridge between women of present and historical times. Skibsted's language and line breaks offer a certainty of voice which can be experienced in It Was Not Me. It was a riddle, a little knot of feeling which took hold, took shape, took wing in the uncertain flutter of my father's heart as it pounded itself into the shape of a bird.
The work, Bren Simmers. Simmers excels at crafting poems that promptly initiate intimacy between the reader and the author's memories. In My Father Cutting an Apple, the reader is invited directly to a kitchen table to witness her father's hands slicing the fruit not in half, but wedge by wedge, with a paring knife, cupping a crisp Gala in his palm, snagging the blade through skin. In these pages, commonplace actions become moments of quiet significance. The poems in the work deal with themes of parental death, terminal illness, dementia, and ultimately love. There's no sensationalizing of pain here, only honesty in content and precision in technique. Simmers uses a variety of forms, such as the short line in options, which speak to a shortening of time as one's health declines, and longer, prose-like lines as seen in People Don't Dance Enough in Public Anymore. The dropping of vowels in several poems shows how dementia gradually steals memory from the author's mother. This book is a slow undressing of those in the poems facing the vulnerability of human life and of the reader whose own fears confront them within these pages. The work compels the reader to visit these poems for the experience of the storytelling itself.
Island by Douglas Walburn Goff. Through integrity and humility, Douglas Walburn Goff's Island centers on the Newfoundland Mi'kmaq experience in the wake of the Halipu enrollment process. The collection is dedicated to Elder Cal White, who has spent over 15 years advocating for Indigenous recognition and rights. It is a poetic pathway through settler colonialism from the vantage point of Western Newfoundland. Island is a poetry collection that does community work on and off the page as it addresses the Halipu Mi'kmaq First Nation and its place or perceived non-place within Newfoundland and across Canada. Island is a nod toward Tahumcook being an island, but also the misconception of the self being an island. Walburn Goff writes of his positionality of straddling a mixed/adopted status, how to step into this lineage, to write about an animal integral to this island's identity, yet so alien it had to be introduced twice. As a poetry collection heavily inspired by dreams, Walburn Goff takes us through layers of intergenerational trauma and moves from the self to the larger circle of Newfoundland and the island's place within Canada. Both personal and political, Walburn Goff writes of encountering thousands of Halipu, or caribou, on the Avalon Peninsula. I stood at the herd's edge, trying to listen, gutted by the ache to belong. And the winner is Douglas Walburn Goff. Island.
Douglas couldn't be with us tonight, but he did send us a few words. He's a bit shy. We're having some technical difficulties. I think we're going to have to move on. He says thank you very much. We now have Gary to read from Island. Gary Williams is an award-winning theater artist, musician, and an avid reader based in Halifax, Jabuktuk. In 2023, he received Arts Nova Scotia's Established Artist Award, and his score for the musical Pinocchio won Best Original Score at the 2024 Merit Awards. He has been the artistic director at Da Popo Theatre since 2004 and is currently a co-administrator of the shared art space, The Nest. Most recently, he played Thomas in the Neptune Theatre production of Casey and Diana. This summer, he will be returning to Prince Edward Island for his third year as music director of the River Clyde pageant.
herd. Another dream, not recurring, but I wish it was. Avalon, a barren dotted with legs and legs and legs. Thousands of caribou grazing under a half-mawsy day of sun and showers, not a single head raised at my approach. At first, I mistook the blunt thump in my skull for my own pulse, but it was interrupted. No, interspersed with huffs and snorts, the soft yield of grass and sedge to tooth and rough tongue, the scrape of lichen from stone. I'd like to say I walked, naked and sure, into their midst, all antlers and wet black eyes. I wish their gentle, barreled bodies had slowly parted as I walked, that I sat in their center unhindered and came to some sort of rude understanding. But I knew little of their countless unsheltered winters, how they've been ousted by moose as the island's mascot. I tried to push myself through their living thicket of hoof and shed velvet, convinced I'd found their middle, but was squeezed out the other side. I stood at the herd's edge, trying to listen, gutted by the ache to belong. How do I say this? I downloaded an app to study Mi'kmaq, tried to find a way back to language without someone more indigenous seeing my shame. But I'm here, a Mi'kmaq Newfoundlander, trying. Writing this mixed, frictioned experience in English, hoping to help anyone else who's this confused, applying two-eyed seeing to the colonized self. I know I belong to wind, belong to booming spray that gnaws at granite cliffs, the stubborn island's rough edges. I'm also cradled by the canoe I grew up in, gliding on glassy ponds, trouting. Blueberries and moose, the smell of black spruce in spring thaw. I can't yet speak Mi'kmaq, but I can tell you that I'll always be mixed, can't unadopt myself from the family who raised me. I won't carry a newfound shame, can't answer for its centuries of colonial history. I have to carry these often conflicting selves, tend to them both with honesty. I was once told, you need to learn faster, but I refuse to rush. No one heals when pushed by someone else's trauma. I want to respond with unflinching self-love when questioned. Reply, Kesalul, Kesalulog. An app won't make me more Mi'kmaq, but I'm done folding myself into someone small out of fear. I'll keep repeating Elmaz Tugwek under the Blomidons, Cedar Cove, and Wee Ball etch themselves into my skull. I'll whisper Mi'kma'ki and Ktamkuk until they become synonymous, mouth Magtugwek until I'm no longer afraid it'll swallow me whole. I want to sing Tiam and Adogwazu to honor what makes the marrow of my bones. Meskeyi for the mistakes I'll make. Walaliog to those who've shown me that a good heart is the way forward. Corner Brook. The company maintained considerable informal influence over municipal affairs after amalgamation, and many of the residents of town site preferred company paternalism to local democracy. Similar to the ways colonial powers' relationships with the colonized carried influence into the post-colonial age, complex and flexible corporate hegemony in Corner Brook echoed through the post-company era. Neil White, Company Towns, Corporate Order and Community. A town full of trees, so much summer canopy you can barely see the roofs from the Three Bear Mountain. Come fall, sugar maples burn bright orange and red, birches sunlight yellow shining through the shorter, damper days. It's not a stretch to walk West Street, caught up in a half-dozen chats with people you know by first name. Some days, that feeling's enough to carry you. I love my hometown, but it's hard won and wavers in the face of our history. A town built on divisions of class and race, not yet 5 generations old. I still hear things like the Mi'kmaq should go back to Nova Scotia. I'm not spending my taxes on them. I still have to walk away, shame and anger twisting in my guts when someone accuses one of us of sucking on the Aboriginal funding teat. When I see a young couple and toddler, one parent remarking to the other, "He walks so slow because he's got your Jackatar blood." You may think I'm being oversensitive, but I know this town. I've spent years streaming your lattes, mowing your lawns, laying sod to kill the dandelions you hated the sight of, worked in your Zellers, dollar stores, produced and hosted your arts events, worked at Grenfell Art Gallery, read to your toddlers at the library, sold you hot dogs from a cart on Broadway. I've been treated differently as writer versus laborer versus government employee. I've seen your surprise in finding out I'm educated, published, and grew up in public housing. Oh, I know. Hometowns are like this. They make you feel so embraced, so known and loved, yet always reminding you of your place. I love you, Corner Brook, but now I want to love me too.
Thank you for that, Gary. We're going to hope that the gremlins have left the computer system, and we're going to give it one more try with Douglas.
Gway, hello. My name is Douglas Walbern-Goff. I'm a mixed/adopted member of the Halibu Mi'kmaq First Nation. I'm also the author of Crow Gulch, Color Work, and Island. I do regret, I am sorry, Mesquite, for not being able to be there in Kijibukduk in person, but I beam myself to you with sincere gratitude from El Mastagwag at the Hamguk, or the Bay of Islands, Newfoundland. Walalin, thank you so much for the honor of receiving the 2025 J.M. Abraham Atlantic Poetry Award. Wow, thank you. I'm both humbled and heartened to be recognized for Island, a book that feels a bit audacious in its subject matter. It is trying to spin several plates at once. I think that audaciousness is necessary, and I certainly hope that none of the plates are wobbling too much as we go. And to be recognized among such an amazing shortlist, again, wow, thank you so much. And I want to extend a warm congrats as well to Claire, Anik, Johanna, and Bren for the recognition of their work through the Abraham as well. Lastly, to jurors, to the Writers' Federation of Nova Scotia, to everyone at the Atlantic Book Awards, to the trustees behind the J.M. Abraham Poetry Prize, and to everybody watching and attending this evening. Walaliach, thank you all for embracing writing and writers, poetry and poets. Enjoy the gala. Thank you so much.
Well, tonight is the conclusion of a week-long festival of book events in the region. The 9th annual New Brunswick Book Awards were presented at a live event on May 31st in Fredericton. The winners of the New Brunswick Book Awards are Mrs. Dunster's Award for Fiction goes to Nelson Keene for Noxerer. Books for Young Readers Award goes to Valerie Sherrard for An Unbalanced Force. The Fiddlehead Poetry Book Prize goes to Michael Pacey for Van Gogh's Grasshopper. Writers Federation of New Brunswick Nonfiction Award goes to C. Ted Benny, James W. Wheaton, Keith Helmuth, Daryl Hunter, Nicholas N. Smith for Tappan Adney, From Birch Bark Canoes to Indigenous Rights. And on Monday, we celebrated with Nova Scotia Book Awards. Huge congratulations to those winners. Dartmouth Book Award for Fiction, Charlene Carr, We Ripped the World Apart. Maxine Tynes Nova Scotia Poetry Award, Corey Lavender, Come One Thing Another. Evelyn Richardson Nonfiction Award, Andrea Curry, Finding Otapenswak. George Borden Writing for Change Award, Omisor H. Dryden, Got Blood to Give, Anti-Black Homophobia in Blood Donation. Margaret and John Savage First Book Award for Nonfiction, Martin Bowman, Hell of a Ride. Margaret and John Savage First Book Award for Fiction, Susan LeBlanc, The Nowhere Places. Congratulations to all the winners and their fellow nominees. As you've been doing, they deserve a big round of applause. All right, the Reader's Choice Award invited readers to vote for their top pick. Boy, did they ever vote. After 2 rounds of voting, over 1,000 votes, first we came up with a top 10 and then the winner. The top 10 are Boom Road by Sean Lawler, Enslavers of the Maritimes by Brenda Thompson, Grey Dog by Elliot Gish, Mal by Chase Cormier, The Nowhere Places by Susan LeBlanc, The Shadows Behind Us by Sarah Butland, The Third Wife of Faraday House by B.R. Myers, Vigil by Susie Taylor, We Rip the World Apart by Charlene Carr, and We Are Not Rich by Sue Murtaugh. And the winner is, it's like the Oscars. We Are Not Rich by Sue Murtaugh.
Thank you very much. I guess I should speak up. First thing I want to do is acknowledge all the other writers on that list and all the writers on all the lists and all the writers and authors in the room. I know that every single person on all of those lists put their heart and soul into whatever project they were working on, and so I think we should celebrate that. Also like to thank the readers who voted for this book. I really wanted to connect with other human beings when I wrote this book, and it looks like it did, so thank you very much to the readers. To my writing teacher and mentor and the editor of this book, Alexander McLeod, a huge thank you. He told me 10 years ago I was writing a book. I didn't believe him. I guess I did. For Nimbus Publishing and Vagrant Press, a huge thank you to the editor for the press, Whitney Moran, who held my hand through this whole thing and was just a wonderful support. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Hannah Zamora and Olivia Ingram for getting this book out into the world. I'd like to acknowledge and thank the Writers Federation of Nova Scotia for their support as an emerging writer, first through the Budge Wilson Prize and then through the Alistair MacLeod Mentorship Program, which helped me emerge as a writer. Finally, my dear family, my siblings, my parents. My dad's no longer with us. My wonderful husband, Sandy Smith. My beautiful daughter, Katie Smith. And I accept this award in memory of our son, Ben, who was the creative inspiration for this book. Thank you.
Congratulations. All right, here to present the Alistair MacLeod Award for Short Fiction is the Cabot Trail Writers Festival Executive and Artistic Director, Rebecca Silver-Slayer, and Dan McDonald from Bookmark.
Hello, everyone. The Cabot Trail Writers Festival is so honored to administer the Alistair MacLeod Award for Short Fiction in memory of the beloved writer it is named for, in partnership with the Atlantic Book Awards and with prize funding generously donated by Bookmark.
Established in 2016, the award is a tribute to its namesake, the late Alistair MacLeod, one of the great writers of Cape Breton Island, and a world-renowned master of the short fiction form. Each year, the award recognizes the best English language short fiction collections by Atlantic Canadian authors.
And the nominees are Alison Graves for Soft Serve, published by Breakwater Books, Amanda Peters for Waiting for the Long Night Moon, published by Harper Perennial, and Susie Taylor for Vigil, published by Breakwater Books.
In Vigil, Susie Taylor depicts the fictional Bay Malverde through a series of intricately linked short stories, I don't know why I had problems with that, told from a variety of distinct perspectives within the community. The structure is integral to the nuanced exploration of the inextricable connections forged in a rural place with limited resources. Each individual piece is a testament to Taylor's mastery of the short story form, while also contributing to an overarching propulsive narrative that makes it difficult to put this book down and step away from its immersive world. Taylor doesn't shy away from difficult material. In the face of hardship, her characters can be as messy and cruel as they are resourceful and loyal. The portrayals of poverty and addiction in Vigil are raw and unflinchingly honest, and yet this collection is full of humor, tenderness, and vivid beauty.
Amanda Peters triumphs in Waiting for the Long Night Moon, a subtle but poignant short story collection that melds fable and traditional storytelling with clear and concise prose to give breath to some of the many injustices faced by Indigenous peoples in Canada past and present. But where there is atrocity, trauma, and grief, Peters demonstrates that there is also resilience, resistance, and power, not to mention light. Throughout the collection, these stories not only demand our attention, but make space for the inextinguishable courage, joy, and perseverance her characters exhibit despite their circumstances and histories.
Soft Serve is the exuberant arrival of a fantastic new voice in short fiction. In this collection, Alison Graves presents an explosion of ideas exploring the contemporary milieu through the corporate non-spaces of places like McDonald's, IKEA, Boston Pizza, and mall food courts. For the millennials of Graves' stories, discontent and nostalgia intertwine with the constant struggle that is life and love.
And the winner is Susie Taylor for Vigil, Breakwater Books.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you to Bookmark. I already spent money there today, so I feel like it's like payback now. And to the writers, to the Atlantic Book Awards, and especially to the Cabot Trail, I'm gonna get it wrong, Arts Association. I always think that one of the things about writing, the prizes are great, let's be honest, but it's the things that it gives you. And I have had the most amazing 3 days. I had one of the best nights of my life in Inverness. I got to read with Allison and Amanda. Alexander MacLeod was an amazing host. I got to meet Anita MacLeod, and it was one of the most gracious and giving audiences that I've ever had. So thank you for this, but also thank you for that experience. I'm like in love with Halifax right now. So thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so happy for this.
Congratulations. And we'd like to welcome back Gary to read from Vigil.
Gary had not gone to the vigil. Business was booming. The Ultramar picnic table, the dark alley behind the building, these were places Stevie had conducted his social and business interactions. He was part of the place. The Esso on the other end of town was probably wishing they hadn't given Stevie such a hard time for smoking near the pumps and sent him on his way. Gary heard people were boycotting the Esso for their treatment of Stevie, but he'd only heard it from Brenda, and he knew the Esso had a bunch of missing posters up in the store. When he drove past earlier, he saw the sign out front that usually advertised the price of gas and bananas now said, "Stevie, come home. Vienna sausage, 2 for 1. Either way, people were coming in to pick up a 6-pack or carton of milk when they came to drop off a message for Stevie or a drawing one of their children had made, encased in a Ziploc bag. And Gary's gas sales were up, a sign his perceived kindness towards Stevie was being rewarded. Truth was, Gary couldn't stand the kid. He'd once caught his daughter walking down the street with him when she was only 14. Stevie was out of school by then, way too old for Kayla. It was just after he'd come back from his trip to the pen. He was wheeling his bicycle along, and Kayla was wearing one of those shirts that showed off her still childishly round belly and pants that revealed one of the thongs Gary's ex-wife inexplicably let Kayla buy with her babysitting and birthday money. Kayla was laughing at something Stevie said. Gary made her get in the car, and she refused to talk to him for 3 weeks. He bought her a new cell phone as a bribe to resume communication, but he didn't tell her he'd put a tracker on it. The only reason he didn't chase Stevie off his property was if Stevie was sitting on the table outside the store, he knew he wasn't out lurking around his daughter. The last place Kayla would be caught was at her dad's gas station. Once, Stevie was so high, he spent 2 hours walking around the Ultramar parking lot, retracing the same figure-8 pattern. When Gary finally went out to talk to him, Stevie didn't hear him, just kept walking like he was in a trance. Gary threatened to call the cops on Stevie more times than he could remember, but he never did. He knew by the time the cops actually showed up, Stevie would be long gone. Stevie was a symptom of all that diseased this place, but he wasn't the cause, and the cops didn't have the time to chase him around unless he was actively engaged in armed robbery. They did come by when Stevie disappeared. Gary didn't tell them that they weren't the first to come looking for him, that days before, Carter had been in making inquiries, seeing if Stevie had been around that morning. Gary overheard this conversation from the back room, but he didn't tell the cops about it, and Brenda didn't mention it either. Just acted all surprised. Well, now you mention it, I haven't seen Stevie for a few days. Funny, I didn't notice. Gary saw one of the cops glance quickly towards her partner, but they didn't push their questions.
Thanks, Gary. The Atlantic Book Awards Society established the Atlantic Legacy Award in order to honor those who have made a lasting contribution to the development of the literary arts in Atlantic Canada. People who've gone above and beyond the call of duty and who have, through innovation, risk-taking, self-sacrifice, and creativity, provided opportunity and inspiration for those sharing Atlantic Canadian stories through writing and publishing. Here to present this year's Atlantic Legacy Award are poets Anik McCaskill and Claire Goulet.
Back in April, Claire and I nominated Gasbro Press for this year's Atlantic Legacy Award, and we are thrilled that the jury selected them as the winner for this year's prize. Gary Dunfield and Andrew Steeves founded independent publishing house Gasbro Press in Nova Scotia in 1997.
I've often joked, said Steeves in a 2014 interview, that we knew just little enough about literary publishing to think it was a good idea. After a few night classes at the Dawson Print Shop in Halifax, Steeves dropped out, got a press of his own. That sounds easy. And in partnership with Dunfield kept going. Since then, they've published hundreds of trade books, broadsides, chapbooks, and fine letterpress editions.
Books published by Gasbro Press have won the Giller Prize, the Governor General's Award for Poetry, the J.M. Abraham Atlantic Poetry Award, the Maxine Tynes Nova Scotia Poetry Award, the Nova Scotia Masterworks Award, and other awards and prizes. For his design work, Steeves won a staggering 54 awards for excellence in book design from the Alcuin Society over the course of 15 years. So many that he recused himself from the competition in 2015, he did, hoping to make way for the next generation of emerging designers, his words.
And that he is it's a Gary Dunfield, Andrew Steeves venture. This move, that recusal of Gasbro from the competition, is characteristic of Gasbro Press's approach to mentorship and community building. At the end of the day, Andrew said in The Ecology of Publishing in conversation with Nova Scotia writer and editor Susan Mills, at the end of the day you keep going not because you are getting ahead, but because you feel that you are doing something for your family of value and for your community, both for that local community and also the broader community of readers. That's what keeps you going. While Gasbro Press books are read, distributed, celebrated, studied, and displayed worldwide now, the focus of the press is primarily local, with many Atlantic Canadian authors, many in this room, starting and continuing their careers with Gasbro Press.
This year, ownership of Gasbro Press will be transferred to Keegan Hawthorne of Sackville, New Brunswick. It seems wholly fitting that this be the time to recognize Gary Dunfield and Andrew Steeves for their outstanding contributions to literature and publishing in Atlantic Canada.
The jury wrote a few words on this year's winner, and they're slightly abridged here. Since its founding in 1997, Gaspereau Press has quietly and modestly been forging its own way, creating books of great beauty, conviction, authenticity, and intelligence. Recognizing that staying small can be its own strength, publishers Gary Dunfield and Andrew Steeves kept everything in-house: editing, design, printing, distribution. But equally important, they chose to be hands-on, to merge old printing technology with new, to emphasize the madeness of each book. They ignored publishing trends to be true to their own vision of their craft, and in doing so created one of the country's most respected publishing houses, small, thoughtful, and committed to excellence rather than to market forces. Keeping things small and local is how Gaspereau Press and its publications have received some of the country's most prestigious awards.
Steeves and Dunfield's unflagging commitment to their work has been a remarkable gift to the Atlantic literary community, in which they have published dozens of writers, to the Canadian publishing community, of which they have been valued, knowledgeable, and generous colleagues for nearly 3 decades, and to the community of Kentville and environs, where their annual Ways Goose events have welcomed young and old to share in the joy of printing and book arts.
What a pleasure to honor the remarkable contributions of Andrew Steeves and Gary Dunfield of Gaspereau Press with the Atlantic Legacy Award. And like we even need to ask, please, a round of applause for Andrew Steeves and Gary Dunfield.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Andrew and myself, it's an honor to accept this. It's kind of a strange thing. I don't, most of the time at least, feel like I'm old enough to be in this position, but I guess I am. Publishing exists at a strange intersection between a number of communities. And for us, community and communities has been, in many ways, one of the focuses of what we've done. And I want to offer my thanks this evening to those communities, to our fellow publishers in the APMA. They've answered my questions and put up with my inquiries and sometimes my criticism. Thank you to the Atlantic publishers and publishers across the country who have been supportive of what we've done, and some ways, I think, most understanding of what we've done. Thank you to the authors. We've published some 200 authors over 30 years, almost 30 years, and I appreciate the trust and the willingness to place their precious works with us to see what we would do with them. Particularly early on, it must have been a bit of a terrible risk. Thank you to the booksellers. Where would we be without good booksellers, particularly good independent booksellers? We've watched booksellers come and go, often sadly, but I have to say I've been heartened in the last few years at the number of people who've started new bookstores, and good on you. Thank you to the readers, obviously. Where would we be without readers? And thank you for picking up our books. We have focused on the physical book, and you have shown us appreciation for what we do with paper and ink and glue and words. Thank you for the people who buy our books. And finally, for us, community has been a focus. It always starts in Kentville and moves out from there to the valley, to the province, to Atlantic Canada. Andrew and I both grew up in New Brunswick, so we have good connections there, and our adopted Nova Scotia, and to the country. To those communities, it's always interesting to see a 5-year-old come in our shop and walk around and look at the equipment and look at the piles of books and be fascinated. And I hope they remember that books don't get made in Amazon warehouses. They get made in print shops across the country, some big, some small. So as we go forward into what comes next, Andrew will be continuing to make books and make beautiful objects, and I shall be doing some other things. I wish you all the best. Thank you for the support over the years, and I look forward to being back here and seeing some of you again in the future. Take care.
He's a lot taller than I am. The Atlantic Publishers Marketing Association Best Atlantic Published Book Award, sponsored by Friesians Corporation, goes to an Atlantic Canadian publisher whose book best exemplifies excellence and achievement in publishing in Atlantic Canada during the previous year. The jury for this award considers all of the elements involved in getting the book in the hands of readers. Here to present the APMA Award is Ron Such of Friesians Canada.
Good evening. Just a little housekeeping note. We're not Friesians Canada. The name of our company is Friesians. There's no international Friesians. There's no U.S. Friesians. It's like elbows up. We're all Canadian. You know, I had this kind of blurb in my mind that I was going to tell you about what a wonderful company Friesians was, and we're an all-Canadian printer, and on and on and on, because I am a salesman. But I was sitting there, and I'm listening, and I don't know, we're surrounded by people who create books, people who write books, people who illustrate books, people who publish books. And that's really exciting stuff. That's why we're all here. Do you really care who prints books? I don't know. Unless you're Gaspro Press, because, you know, they're not really book printers. They're like, I don't know, artists. And I wasn't 5 years old the first time I walked through your shop, Gary, but it sure impacted me. And I remember a few years ago now, Gaspro won the Giller, and you know, handcrafting books, and I mean, it's just amazing what they do. Well, they couldn't meet the demand of all of the books that were required across Canada, so they decided that they were going to do a few books with Friesians because we can kind of churn them out like little puppies, right? And I don't know, I was almost embarrassed that we were printing a Gaspro product, because I got to tell you, quite honestly, ours didn't look as good as theirs, but we tried to do our best. But anyway, thank you to the Atlantic Canadian publishers for inviting us back year after year. I'm always proud on behalf of the 400 Canadian employees of Friesians. We're employee-owned, and we present a check every year for $4,000 to the best published book. Now, I'm from Mennonite heritage, and I'm just starting to master English, so there's a little French in here, so I'm going to sort of stumble through that part, and we'll see what we can do. I'm going to call the first book Mal. because that's what it was referred to on the screen. It's by Chase Cormier, and want to tell you a little bit about that book. Mal has a striking cover design which makes it stand out from other books. This is a clever work of autofiction, and it receives top marks for originality. It also places a spotlight on the Cajun language and culture that generally receives little recognition. It is difficult for a small press to gain attention for their work, but this book accomplishes just that. A small gem competing in a sea of bigger marketing budgets. Bonus points for contributing to the continuation of Cajun French and identity. It is important to acknowledge the achievements of a small press when they do such great work. The second nominee, and this is what the judges had to say about Zatari. This book is an important archive of Syrian culture, recipes, and also supports a group of people experiencing a humanitarian crisis. More than a cookbook, it encapsulates the spirit and history of the Syrian people in a beautifully designed interior and exterior. The publisher created an extensive and wide-reaching promotional campaign that enabled the book to reach a large audience and become a bestseller. The book provides a catalyst for discussion, a call for understanding, and the acknowledgement of suffering in a world that feels very dark lately. This book deserves to be in the top 3 for all of these reasons. And the jury had to say about death and other inconveniences the following. Congratulations to Nimbus for publishing a well-designed and lovely book. The author has elevated a common experience and woven an exceptional tale, featuring a woman on a voyage of self-discovery. There are very few coming-of-age books featuring a 62-year-old woman. Although that doesn't seem too old to me. Yeah. That's another story. The publisher has launched a clever marketing campaign and secured sales in large chain stores. The battle against ageism is real, and we need more heroes over 60 in the Canadian book world. Nothing is certain in life except death and taxes, and if you are lucky, a best-selling book. Highly deserving of a nomination in the top 3 of the Publishing Award. And the winner is, thank you. I knew it. Mal by Chase Cormier. And I believe, where are we at?
Hello. So I'm not from Atlantic Canada. I'm from a state on the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, and where by some miracle people still speak French. And I was lucky and privileged to learn French from my grandfather, and he's kind of the main inspiration for the main character in this book. His name's not Mal, his name's Kelly. But so in this language, there's a word in the Louisiana dialect of French that doesn't exist in any other dialect. It's la ñap. And so if you know Spanish, you may know the word la ñapa. And so la ñap is like a gift, a bonus, something extra. I think the closest English equivalent would be like the 13th donut in a baker's dozen, maybe. And so writing this book has been the biggest test of discipline in my life that I've had so far. I mean, I love the process, but it was, it's like I was always ready to move on to something else. And my editors kept coming back to me with comments and changes and things. And so anything like beyond finishing the book is lagna for me at this point. And this is a team award. and this book was 100% a team effort. Whenever I sent that manuscript a couple years ago to Édition Personnage, they just looking at like what that looked like now and how the book turned out. They really, I feel like, gambled there, the book changed so much. The whole editing process, I can tell that that there was like this sobriety and attention and care that they took in working with me. And this being my first book, everything has just been extra and bonus and amazing. So thank you to this festival and to the jury and to Édition Personnage, and thank you all.
And the publishers couldn't be here with us tonight, but they did send a video.
Bonsoir à toutes et à tous. Merci infiniment pour cet honneur. Je m'appelle Émilie Tournelle, je suis la directrice littéraire des éditions Personnage. Ma collègue Danielle Leblanc, directrice générale, et moi-même tenons à excuser notre absence à la cérémonie de ce soir. On aurait beaucoup aimé vous rencontrer et célébrer cette belle nouvelle avec vous, chers collègues, auteurs, autrices, éditeurs et éditrices de l'Atlantique. L'anglais étant ma langue seconde, je vais lire une partie de ce discours. Alors ça va comme suit. We are humbled to accept this award for a book that we fell in love with and an author who's been nothing short of exceptional to work with. Chase nous est arrivé de la Louisiane par le biais de Georgette Leblanc, collaboratrice chez Personnage depuis de nombreuses années. Et ensemble, nous avons accompagné Chase dans la réécriture de ce qui était d'abord un recueil de poésie, afin d'en faire le recueil de récits que vous avez devant vous ce soir. Ce livre a été un coup de cœur un peu partout, notamment la prestigieuse librairie Gallimard à Montréal l'a sélectionné pour un club de lecture et il a fait l'objet de plusieurs entrevues à Radio-Canada, dont un passage remarqué à l'émission « Il restera toujours la culture » sur la chaîne nationale. Chase et Perroquet ont également fait la tournée des salons du livre et fait fureur au Festival Fry où on a dû restocker la librairie à 2 reprises. The book's title refers not only to Perroquet's grandfather, Malachi, but also the multiple instances of mal or aches that surface in the collection: identity, language, family, heritage. The bold and creative work of Kinos on the cover nods to Perroquet and the family trade in a bright and playful way. We can in fact see this culinary cultural heritage in book promotion initiatives that Chase coordinated, especially in the Mal-inspired hot sauce bottles. As a publisher operating in a linguistic minority setting here in Atlantic Canada, Personnage is uniquely positioned to publish and disseminate various French-Acadian accents. Personnage provides one of the few avenues for Franco-Louisianians to access a large Canadian market, and more specifically, a Franco-Canadian market that shares affinities in terms of storytelling, especially in Acadie. In keeping with our mandate to celebrate Francophone voices, Mal is written and published in Louisianian French. We included a glossary at the end to help initiate readers unfamiliar with some of the vocabulary. Apart from that, no fuss is made about the language so that it may shine without being folklorized. Although Personnage is celebrating its 45th anniversary this year, the story of this book is one of newness and firsts. Impressively, Mal is Chase Cormier's first book, and the management team at Personnage is new, with both the publisher Danielle Leblanc and myself coming on board within the last 3 years. So if you'd like to learn more about Personnage or about Chase, please pick up the latest issue of Atlantic Books today. So thank you. Thank you for validating the work we're bringing to an already rich and historic catalog. And thank you very much to the jury, to the Atlantic Publishers Marketing Association, and to the Atlantic Book Awards team for putting this event together and for celebrating our stories. I wish you all a very good evening. And once again, congratulations, Chase. This is very well deserved. I hope you enjoy your night.
And we'd like to invite Gary to come back for another reading.
Dans la vallée basse de son grand lit, ma mère lance des cris, des appels à l'aide à un homme qui regarde le plancher. Mon père ne répond pas. Il regarde le plancher. Peut-être qu'il ignore, peut-être qu'il imagine la boue sous le plancher, recouvrant les roseaux de conduites de gaz et de fourmilières. Ma mère ne prend aucune drogue, alors elle met les anabolisants dans la même catégorie que les opiacés, les stimulants et les sédatifs. Elle est contre tout ça, et son aversion s'entend dans l'éruption d'insultes qu'elle crache au visage de son mari. Mon père se soumet aux seringues et aux pilules depuis des années. Il est surexcité. Là, devant ma mère, il est déjà parti, perdu dans son propre corps, terrifié par le monde réel. Je sors de la maison et n'entends que les cris étouffés de ma mère et ceux de plus en plus aigus du moquet perché haut dans le chêne de notre jardin. Je m'accroupis, impressionné le peu qu'il faut pour faire dérailler les fourmis rouges. Il suffit de placer une seule feuille verte sur leur voie poussiéreuse et elle la traverse comme si affronter cette montagne toute neuve était une partie inévitable de leur voyage. La porte s'ouvre et se referme. Mon père monte dans sa voiture sans dire un mot. Il démarre et s'en va, suivi d'un nuage d'échappement. Je suis les fourmis vers la cour arrière, de l'autre bord de la montagne verte. J'y trouve un ballon de football, à moitié gonflé et terni par le soleil, la pluie et l'attente interminable. Mon père ne vient jamais jouer. Et moi, ça ne m'intéresse pas de jouer tout seul avec un ballon ovale. Le bourbier en arrière de la cour m'appelle et je me dirige vers la fardouche mouillée. J'arpente la frontière imaginaire entre arbre et ombre, presque confondue dans la lueur du soleil couchant. La nuit n'est toujours pas couchée sur la prairie, mais la fardoche derrière ma maison se blottit comme une île sombre au milieu d'une large verdure. Mon odorat ignore la moisissure et s'étire vers la sève qui monte des contreforts des jeunes cypres au tronc. Ces arbres obstinés s'entremêlent en alternance avec les chênes gris, les saules, les oliviers, les pacanières. J'enjambe les ronces et les branches. J'ignore combien d'autres nombrils de cormiers couchent sous les feuilles mortes. Debout, le rentier droit, je regarde la voûte basse de la fardoche, écoute la société des carencrocs et des moqueurs, toujours les mêmes oiseaux qui répètent les mêmes ordres, toujours les mêmes arbres et les mêmes ombres à chaque crépuscule. Je ressens l'énergie du continent sous mes pieds, ne pense pas au tracas d'adultes qui écaboussent l'intérieur de la maison. Je reconnais cette humidité que me rappelle que je suis encore dans le seul endroit du monde où le temps s'accordionne et où la boue ne coule guère. Mais je me sens seul, fragile. Et pour la première fois, mon père, costaud, me paraît si faible, si petit dans son délire, son corps si délicat. J'ai parfois l'impression d'avoir sauté une génération, comme si je descendais plutôt de mâle. Ou peut-être que c'est mon père qui n'a jamais su trouver sa place dans la lignée. Peut-être que son nombril a été enterré ailleurs, loin des nôtres.
Okay, well, valued at $30,000, the Thomas Raddall Atlantic Fiction Award is the largest literary prize in Atlantic Canada and one of the largest in the country. This prestigious award is intended to provide writers, quote, the gift of time and peace of mind. It is administered by the Writers' Federation of Nova Scotia, and to present this year's nominees is writer and co-founder and co-executive director of Afterwards Literary Festival, Stephanie Domet.
It's very exciting this whole night. Incredible to be around you all. The nominees are Carol Bruneau for Threshold, published by Nimbus Publishing and Vagrant Press, Marc Blagrave for Felt by Cormorant Books, Charlene Carr, We Rip the World Apart, published by HarperCollins, David Hubert for Oil People, published by McClellan and Stewart, and Susie Taylor for Vigil, published by Breakwater Books. Carol Bruneau's new collection of short stories is fresh and warm. Her keenly observed protagonists offer readers a broad range of personalities and life situations. Their diverse lives are anchored in Halifax, but sometimes travel very far afield. They are, for the most part, eminently ordinary people, deeply embedded in relationships and families. We meet them as they approach some small but pivotal moment, a threshold that has enormous impact on characters' lives and hearts. Bruneau has lovingly crafted every sentence of these threshold stories. Her characters' lives open just as a reader's understanding does. These stories reveal new moments with a universal resonance, and those moments hold both hope and resilience. Marc Blagrave in Felt. Focusing on the impact of Alzheimer's, Marc Blagrave's Felt helps us appreciate togetherness and offers a reflection on how families cope with dramatic changes to those we love. The very fitting title introduces the emotional turbulence the reader can expect when delving into this novel. Felt tells the tale of Penelope, a woman showing signs of memory loss, and her son Matt, who does his best to navigate this new development in his mother's life. Blagrave skillfully illustrates the neurodegenerative disease's impact on a person's quality of life, and especially how it directly impacts the lives of those closest to them. His ability to hold his characters at arm's length allows the reader to find their own story within these pages. And Charlene Carr, We Rip the World Apart. In exploring the experiences of 3 generations of a Jamaican-Canadian family, Charlene Carr's We Rip the World Apart examines belonging, community, racism, resistance, and motherhood. In the unstable world in which we find ourselves, Carr's work is vital and important, offering a nuanced look at trauma, race-based police violence, and a woman's right to choose. We Rip the World Apart is a story that desperately needs to be told. Carr invites us to reckon with how far we've come as a society and how far we still have to go. This is a novel that goes down easy, pages flying by, even while creating a sense of unease as those pages turn and characters' lives are changed forever. David Hubert, Oil People. Oil People is a story to savor, not devour. Hubert's debut novel yields much like the earth drilled by one of its main characters, demanding time and attention, focus, and forgiveness. It challenges the norm, delicately balancing the good and the bad within the oil industry through a story that travels across generations, along family lines, through river and over land. Oil People will start conversations, change perspectives, challenge opinions, and do it all with mind-bendingly poetic language. With a long view that includes the past, present, and future, Oil People gives us an opportunity to begin to understand the impact of our ways. And Susie Taylor, Vigil. The community of Bay Malverde, Newfoundland and Labrador, comes to life and lonely death in Susie Taylor's Vigil, a collection of interconnected short stories. The prose strikes a masterful balance between comedy and pathos as we find ourselves in an isolated community in pain and mourning. With a nuanced touch, Taylor explores the reliable supply of opioids, addiction, and how every action and inaction has consequences that ripple through the whole community. Within this heartbreaking tale of community despair and decline, Taylor masterfully reveals the many ways a community can be viewed by insiders, outsiders, and lookers on. Congratulations to all the nominees.
And to announce this year's winner, we have Tom Raddall III.
Thank you. It's certainly my family's privilege and honor to continue to support the authors of Atlantic Canada. Please keep doing what you're doing. Tonight I'm wearing my father's favorite sports jacket. He's the one who founded this award. And to go with the medallion tonight, I have an autographed copy of my grandfather's book that he signed over 40 years ago, his memoirs. And without further ado, the winner of the award is David Hubert.
We've got David's father coming up, Ron Hubert, to accept the award on his behalf. David couldn't be with us tonight. He's in Toronto at another awards ceremony where he is shortlisted for the Amazon First Book Award. We have our fingers crossed for you, David, and we want to hear from David's father first.
As you know, I'm not David Hubert. So let me explain why I'm here. When David was about this high, he began his hockey career. And I used to, of course, go into the dressing room and tie up his skates for him before every game. And mostly before every practice, too. I remember having a conversation. I remember I wanted him to take more and more responsibility. And so I had a conversation with him one day about things that he would eventually learn to do all by himself. And I said, well, you're not going to have a 48-year-old equipment manager next year. And he said, no. Next year, I'll have a 49-year-old equipment manager. I didn't know that it would come to this, however. But I'm very pleased for him. Oil People is a terrific book. And I know if he were here, he would want to acknowledge with respect and pleasure the other people who, the other nominees for this award. And he would also want to express his gratitude, which I will do for him with two simple words. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hubert. We do have a short video from David for us to watch now.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Mom and Dad. I'm really sorry I couldn't be there in person tonight, but I'm so pleased to beam into you to accept this award. I can't tell you how honored I really am to be receiving the Thomas Raddall Atlantic Fiction Award. I'd like to begin by thanking the Raddall family. It really is such an incredible and rare thing you do to keep this award going in honor of the legacy of Thomas Ed Raddall, such an important writer in this region. Thank you so much to the Raddall family. I and so many other writers are really, really grateful for the work that you do. Books can't be made without a nurturing ecosystem, as we all know, and I'm so very grateful for the literary ecosystem here in Mi'kma'ki. I'd like to thank all the indie bookstores in the region, most especially Bookmark Halifax, which is my ideal form of the bookstore and the one where I always dreamed of one day having a book on the shelf. Thanks also to Woozles, the King's Co-op bookstore, and all the other indies in the region. You are a petri dish and just so very vital to the community. I'd like to thank everyone at the WFNS, including Oriana Dunker and Andy Verboom, and thanks to all the jurors of this award as well. I'd like to thank my brilliant editor, Joe Lee, and my publisher, McClellan and Stewart, all the wonderful people that touched this book along the way. Huge thanks to Stephanie Sinclair, who was my agent when Oil People was sold, and who is now my publisher at McClellan and Stewart, and is just such a towering force and a champion of so many. I'd also like to thank my current agent, Ron Eckel. This book at different stages received support from the Canada Council for the Arts, the Ontario Arts Council, and the London Ontario Arts Council, and I'm grateful to those funding agencies and the people that keep them going. I wrote the first draft of this novel while I was writer in residence at the University of New Brunswick. Thanks to everyone there for the support, especially Sue Sinclair and Mark Anthony Jarman. Finally, thank you to my family, my parents who nourished me with stories and taught me how to tell them. My father, Ron Hubert, my mother, Elizabeth Edwards, my sister, Rachel Hubert, who is a hilarity and an inspiration. My partner, Natasha, who allows all of this to happen, and our children, Rose and Sybil, who keep me going. Thanks so much, everybody. That's it for me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great night.
And we now have Colleen to read from Oil People.
Neuroscientists believe déjà vu is the mind's proleptic scenario, a future conjured in dream. This, I promise you, is not superfluous. Minds predict likely outcomes so that we can solve potential problems. What if the rock, too, dreams? What is the line between simulation and premonition? What if déjà vu could go backwards, too, as well as forwards? Not prediction, but speculation. Not premonition, but revision. History seen again. A man senses the slide when it starts, the creep and tug of obsession. There are some days he wants to pull back. There are days, many, that he knows she deserves more of him, that he wants to be better for her. There are days they do not speak, or he gives her one-word answers. There are days he vows to be better. They have come so far, built so much. But always there is the pull, the below, this land. He wonders if it is cursed. He wonders if there is some primal wrong of his being here, if there are things not to be prodded or stirred or brought to the surface, things to be left alone. There are days he sees his sister, her back turned so he cannot see her face. She is in a cave, black water at her ankles. A candle hisses and quivers. There are nights he dreams her. She opens her mouth and there is no tongue there. No tongue or teeth, only worms in their terrible capers. Worms like threads, tangled threads, rising together, knotting and unknotting, growing long as noodles, spooling and furling and reaching in their mute majesty for something secret and known. He paused in front of a spider web. It hung at eye level on the lower branches of a birch. A breeze carried through and the branches swayed, and so did the web. He thought about the architect of this intricate knot, this beautiful convolution. He wondered if a spider took pride in its work. How could it not? As he beheld the web, the pain sharpened through his jaw, muscles seizing. He reached up to massage it, felt the cords around his jaw clench into a mass the size and texture of a clam. He rubbed and pressed, but it seized, clamped, shriveled his whole being until he fell to his knees in the grip of it, turned his head, and saw the bird. Even in the grip of the pain, he knew a thing was right in the world. A thing was clear. A thing would help him see. He knew then that he had been looking in the wrong direction. He needed to look from above. He walked over to it, stooped down beside it, lifted it slow. Tenderly, he stroked its beak, the pain still clenching, and yet he felt the wash of a great relief. He had a plan, a vision. There was work to be done. We were in the museum when Mum told me we were oil people. This was when I was 11 or 12, 2 years before the stuff with Mark. That day at school, Thea had seen my sandwich and said bologna was for poor people. This was one of her first betrayals, an announcement of the end of childhood friendships. Time for new allegiances. There was a growing strain in our friendship, an imbalance. One kid has a peanut-shaped pool. The other has an inflatable duck that smells like a tire factory. One family produces crude oil in the 19th century manner. The other refines it with modern technology, consults about new roads and bridges and pipelines from Montreal. But there was another layer, too. There was suspicion. I'd begun to sense that Mum didn't trust Thea's father. When Thea ditched plans with me and then had a sleepover with Lily Markstrom and pretended she was too busy to answer the phone, Mum had said I was better off, muttered something about the black Cadillac, dirty money, and dirty mouths. That day in the museum, some city boy with smudged high tops and a freshly tattooed cobra around his biceps was showing off for his girlfriend, making fun of the drill bits and treadles and the lazy-eyed taxidermy owl. He asked about the house, and Mum told him that we lived in there, explained how it was original from 1862, designed by her ancestor, Lise Armbruster, constructed in traditional Gothic style, the first in town. Most of the nice houses were built several years later, once the boom struck in Petrolia. She told him about the buttresses and the lancet windows and the barge board. The city boy scoffed, turned away, whispering to his girlfriend about Chernobyl and Freddy Krueger. He stood in the museum's glass door, pointing at the charred south wing, saying, "Can you believe people actually live in there?" The girlfriend laughed, winced to Mum uncomfortably, blew a huge pink bubble. "Pyro," the boy said, is what I heard. Mum straightened her back, adjusted her whale spout ponytail. She smelled, as always, of chamomile and stale tobacco. I stared into the thatch of gray above her right temple, a blob in the shape of a cartoon ghost. Mum winced until the city boy took his girlfriend past the model refinery, past the legacy gusher display, a volcano of table syrup, and into the screening room where the genuine Euler tape ran perpetually on the Betamax. A little artsy-fartsy, I'd once heard my father say about the film. When they were out of earshot, I wrangled the nerve to ask my mother, "Are we poor people?" Mum sucked her teeth, asked if I'd heard that at school. I nodded, and she asked who'd said it. When I told her, she said she didn't give two hoots what Thea Mayweather thought. "Those people stole from us," she said. I looked at her, curious, but she avoided my gaze, stood and scurried around the foyer, straightened the books and the T-shirts. "They owe us." "What'd they steal?" "Nothing," she swallowed. "An idea." The teenagers were still in the other room, cackling at the old droning voice, a man describing the thickness of casing and the nodding donkey pump jacks, the Canadian rig and the hard oilers who would go from Lambton County to Java and Borneo and Galicia, would travel all over the world peddling Canadian oil expertise. Mum sat down again. "We're not poor people," she said. "We're oil people. It's in our blood."
We extend our heartfelt congratulations to the nominees of the 2025 Atlantic Book Awards, and we applaud this year's deserving winners. You may have noticed on your way in this evening, there are some surprise book bundles for sale. $20 for a wrapped bundle of 3 books, and you get to spin the wheel for a prize. I'm told it's very fun. And the prizes are a bunch of things that go really well with reading. Gift certificates to cafes, pedicure from Spirit Spa, Scentsy Spa passes, and more. So there are only 40 bundles available. Your chances are good. And all funds raised tonight go directly back into the Atlantic Book Awards, so we can keep bringing you events like this one. A big thanks to our friends at Bookmark for generously loaning us the spinning wheel for the night. And I should mention that the books in our secret bundles are great, Atlantic books, but they're not the nominees you heard about this evening. If you want to get your hands on a nominated book, you know you do, head over to see Bookmark. Thank you all for attending tonight, and keep reading Atlantic Canadian books. Goodbye to everyone on the live feed. Give them a wave. And for those of you in the room, please stay to chat, celebrate, get your book signed, get pictures taken, and eat cheese because snacks are on the way. And welcome back to Gary Williams on the piano. Have a great night.